Optimizing your website for AR headsets. Yes, we're talking about the Apple Vision Pro, the MetaQuest series, and future Google Android XR glasses, and what your website needs to do to take advantage of these new WebXR standards. These are browser-based immersive scenarios your website could be programmed with and taking advantage today, and what are the things that we need to do. From a build standpoint, it's not super complex. Normally we're going to plug in a CSS and JavaScript library system, like a jQuery on steroids, into the website. This is something that can be done on a lot of different platforms. Our platform that we use, our CMS, already brought in some of these elements into it, so it's a good thing if you work with us, if you're trying to do this. Most of the time we are building big websites for companies, but we do small business websites as well, and we already have the knowledge on things like 3JS, A-Frame, Babylon. These are some of the frameworks that are becoming the top of the heap. They're not all that hard to plug in for a website, especially if you got a talented graphic designer. We have a great talented graphic designer. This is a great way to enter the AR and become compatible with these headsets without having to break the bank. XR is more mature and widely supported now, including Safari, the Vision OS. It's closing the gap between, is this just a novelty, and people using these headsets for hours a day. And what we are seeing, the people who are doing this do have a higher propensity to buy. They're not using it just for gaming. They're using it also for research, because these are really big monitors when you're wearing a headset and you're able to focus in on the content. So you want everything to look perfect on here. So some of the quick wins that you can get is just starting with some of the AI markers and image targets that you can use inside of the design. This is where ARJS is a target framework that we can put onto a website. You can have your designers put onto a website. You make sure that you overlay this with your 2D backup. So what you're doing there is, when you hear us talk about we're designing mobile first, this is using some of those AR cues, but you make sure that you don't break your 2D experience just for the 3D. What we do see is increased focus on the website speed. Target for a lot of these are 300 milliseconds, especially when it's app experience. You have to really have these pages really highly optimized. Things that are going to be the right SVG graphics for your icons, for your logos, and do those properly. Don't just run them through an online converter that's going to take it and convert it to an SVG. We saw somebody who converted and did that with 30 meg file when it should be like a 26K file. It's a huge difference. It slowed down their website because the AR headsets have a lot of restrictions around the thermal aspects of battery life. They need to be using an optimized fashion. Now, when you get into the video and the spatially optimized content, that's where you put the emphasis and put your pixels in and put the focus. What you do there is a blend of minimalizing the frame of the site and making it focus in on what really matters and controlling that content. Now, the other great piece here, and this is a key tip, is the profiles now are in a lot of browsers to run simulators. So Apple Vision Pro Simulator is in Safari. So you just have to have the Safari browser, it prefers it on a Mac, to be able to simulate the VR experiences on a website. That gives you that lower level access into those techniques to be able to better design the website and see how it's going to flow without having to buy a set of Vision Pro or to have multiple people validate that the site is Vision Pro compatible. So the result on that is going to be a new experience when you're running that simulator and getting those things optimized. You move to things like the Vision Quest and the glasses. Go beyond 2D and start thinking about how we're going to put these spatially optimize objects into our websites. When you're navigating a website, you have objects that are easy to navigate through. Small buttons, small tabs are not all that easy to click when you're talking about in a spatial environment. If you're talking about an FAQ area, you make sure that you can zoom in and zoom out on that. Focusing your design for the iDwell. iDwell is where we're going to focus, they're going to read and be able to go into content that is meant to be read, meant to be that focus, but you can't have big globs of content. They're not using the VR headset as a replacement for a Kindle. Most people are not. They're doing research on it. Could do that. It's going to be mostly people that are looking to get the facts, get the FAQs. So think about that and think about how you mimic what you do with a mouse with your hand. So also bring in and think about the design and how it looks in Apple Glass. What I like to suggest there is rounded corners and highlight sections and a little bit of contrast when you've got a block of area that you want to stand out. This is one of those things that helps your site look a little more spatially aware, even if you're making that transition into it. So design for seamless integration, that it's not going to be super intrusive because they may be looking at stuff behind them. They're using these VR glasses. They may have a TV behind them. They may have some other thing. So putting those rounded borders and think about how your website looks with something ghosted out in the background. It's definitely an area where design comes in. I'm predicting that Apple, Google, Meta, all of them, they're going to prioritize sites that are optimized to keep the people with the headset on. If you've got blockers, they're going to be recording to the world of AI and data logging. They're going to know this person just popped the headset off, is angry, and now has to go back to manual mode on something on a website. So you need to emphasize a flow that is not going to upset the person, not going to get them 90% of the way, and make them have to then pop out of that VR experience. If you like this video, be sure to check out our video on how to optimize your website for AI search.